Listen, this book is called I Who Have Never Known Men, and that's the way I would like to keep it. My name's Cecylia. This is Shelf Absorb Podcast. I'm your host. Today I'm excited to welcome our next guest of season 3. And this is Cheyanne Neuenschwander. Cheyanne, would you like to say hello to our listeners? It's actually Cheyanne's Sexy Pants. If you look at my screen name, yeah, Cheyanne's actually allowed us to set a new guest policy. It's called "Don't let the guests name themselves when they're coming into the recording studio screen." So for today, we did Cheyanne's recommended a lot of books to me. She has a lot of great book recs, but this specifically one I'm still holding a resentment against her for. We read I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. And this, it's not a bad book. It's a great book, but I just was staring at a wall for an hour after finishing reading it. I have started a book club within my own little community of gal pals in Pittsburgh. And this was a book that we kind of all agreed on doing together thanks to TikTok. And I also was feeling a lot of resentment for, I'm going to have to find the creator that posted the video about this book. I've seen it a lot to tag them. But yeah, there was, I was like, oh yeah, all of the saved, you should read this and you should read this. And this was one of them. This was good. I think you just have to know what you're going into. This is going to leave you with a lot of questions. It's a really great read for, thought-provoking if you like discussing theories with friends. This is a great book club pick, I think, because you could just sit and talk about this for 4 hours with somebody who read the same book, and you guys would have different ideas and outcomes. So I think it's a great discussion book. This book was written in 1995. So I think that is also a important aspect to put into there. It's now becoming repopular, and why? Look at the state of the world. But this is a book where there are 40 women, and our narrator is number 40, but there are 40 women trapped, imprisoned in a cage in a bunker with no memory of how they got there. They have brief memories from their life before, but they're housed there by 4 guards who are very indifferent and don't speak. And they're not allowed anything. They're stripped of everything that they know, all of their items, and they're just in this dark bunker. They're fed twice a day. They don't know what time it is. They don't see seasons, weather, and our narrator is she's the youngest, so she has no memory of any life before. All she's ever known, she was 1 or 2 when they were entered captivity. So she knows nothing and grows up in this bunker. And then when the girl is 15 or 16, they escape due to just a stroke of luck. And you'll when you read the book, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to, but stroke of luck, they're able to escape. They kind of come up to the top and they're free, but at what cost? It was a fairly quick read, I would say. And not super intellectually challenging in terms of content, but a lot of existential, just wait a second. Also, questions. Side note, you did say before I had started reading it, you were like, hey, I'm reading this book, I Have Never Known Men. We should do it for my episode, blah, blah, blah. You were like, it's very elementary in its writing. I swear I started it and I was like, am I stupid? I could not follow what was happening. I think when I describe books as elementary, I think I'm thinking more in the context of a lot of these fantasy books that you read. I am the reader that's going through and not knowing how to pronounce any of the names, not knowing me too. Half of these SAT words that I'm having to Google in the middle of reading them versus this one where I'm oh, I didn't actually have to sit there and figure out how to say Tamlin. I know that word. Yeah. It's not. This is a word that's familiar to me. Crayon on it. That one I can understand. I know a crayon. Yeah. I find myself getting really frustrated when I'm reading books where it's I have to read the sentence 4 times to comprehend what it means. The quote that I have pulled up right now is that it just says, "My memory begins with my anger." And I'm that's me every morning. I'm me staring in the mirror. And the tie to anger is really beautiful as well, because once that starts to be removed from her. Like when our narrator, when she's like depleted of her anger, I thought it was interesting how she's also depleted of like her drive and her hope. And like in a lot of ways, she's like, I'm just apathetic towards life now. And that's when she finally starts to slow down, and just when her anger,
that's when she's like, radical acceptance, baby.
And it's like, which was better? You know what I mean? Like, which was it better when she was like searching for answers and she was the only person in this bunker with these women that were like, come on, guys, like rallying, because her anger, I think, is what got them to the top. Otherwise, eventually, like, we know that the guards disappeared. So they eventually would have been able to unlatch the key, right? But we don't know that in that moment. And this young girl who's like so full of anger and questions is like not standing there frozen, where I think if you would have stood there frozen for a lot longer had you not had that like she's the one that turns the key and is like, no, follow me, let's go find out, because she only has curiosity. She doesn't have fear of like what's up there. She doesn't have any fear of what's like waiting for them, whereas all the other women do. And she's pissed, and she's like, climbs this insane, really physically she shouldn't be capable of making this climb to the top, but because she's so driven by anger, adrenaline, and curiosity as opposed to fear and sorrow, she gets not only herself but encourages 39 other women to come to the top with her. Which, so I think when it's interesting to see her relationship with anger, and it's like, which was better, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the age-old question. This book literally leaves you with so many more questions than it does answers. But once she resolves her anger, mine flourishes. I'm so proud of her. And then there's me. My memory begins with anger literally every morning. But I think there's like, you know, it then kind of leads into just our understanding of like how humans interact in our world. Like what powerful emotions do we have within ourselves that keep us moving forward and drive us? Like, are you a person that's driven by fear and anxiety, or are you a person that's driven by excitement and anger and passion? And can you be driven by all of the above and still have the same outcome? And like, what does it look like if one emotion is driving you more than another? So like you see her kind of being like, well, I'm pissed, and like I am curious, and these are like, so that is what my purpose is, and that is what's driving me to continue on to like find purpose and sense of self. And like, only does that anger dissipate when she reaches a point of like radical acceptance in and of itself. And so like,
or just like being stripped of hope. Like, is it radical acceptance? And like radical acceptance can look a couple different ways. It's like, we see it as this really positive thing, but in this novel, radical acceptance was like, it's like you just got stripped of all your hope. And it's like I think that was what was so jarring for me. I'm like, oh, radical acceptance can also be depressing. Like,
but also like that's coming from the reader's mindset. Like, we also still have to remember that the narrator, like, she still doesn't know what's out there, and she is still kind of in that place where like, well, does she then kind of reach enlightenment and happiness, because she still doesn't know. So she's like blissfully unaware that there could potentially be more in this world.
I don't think she's blissfully unaware. I think she is so like, I see what you're saying, and I think that like for her it drove her crazy, whereas like a less curious person probably could have found a blissful unawareness. But at the end, she's like, I guess hopefully, like, she's still hoping that someone finds this letter that she's written. She's still hoping that like there's something out there. And I think, whether it be because through the women's stories and she heard some of the things that she was missing, that she was like sad at the end that she didn't know. Like, she's very aware of the fact that she's unaware, and that really deeply bothers her. Whereas I think some of the other women probably found more relief in death than our narrator did. Like, I think there was just still a pain at the end for her, versus like some of them that had lived a full life before this captivity and that knew what they were missing out on were like running towards death with open arms. They were like, finally, it's my time. Whereas she's like, I'm too tired to go anywhere. I hope someone finds this letter. Like maybe it's still out there. Like, I don't know. So it's almost her. I don't know. I hadn't fully formed that thought. So it's just kind of
I
like
think that's fair. I mean,
floating in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also a very good point.
What did this book kind of spark in your mind around community?
So like this book was re-released in 2022, I think, and it became a lot more popular during the election. So this has kind of become a book that it's an exploration of shared humanity. And I think in the political climate that we exist in, it has allowed me to view humanity and community in a new light, and ask myself like questions about just like, where do I find connections within my own social circle and surrounding? Like, who are the people that I rely on to push me to be better and to like reach the goals that I want to reach? What the book kind of did for me was like provide you this narrator who is doing it all on her own, while why and not necessarily relying on the other women to get to a place of radical acceptance and understanding.
That's the buzzword.
That's our theme for this. Yeah, like and like I think for me, like the biggest thing that it sparked in me was just like, why do we fight to survive even when there's no hope left? And there was just a lot of like existential kind of like understanding my own morals and values, and like, how would I have handled things if I had been in the bunker with all of the information that I already have? Because I have a hard time just being like, okay, Cheyanne, strip yourselves of every aspect of your identity and put yourself in the role of this character. I'm like, I can't do that.
Okay, we're talking about the really dark and sad aspects of it, but it's also like just such a wholesome look at community and womanhood. And I told Cheyanne prior to us filming that I really think it would have gone so differently. Like, I would love to read an I Who Have Never Known Women from one of the men's perspective, because I just think that had the same scenario happened with an escape, what's interesting to me about the fact that it's a group of women, that it kind of dawned on me throughout the read. I'm like, we haven't seen any territorial arguments, any war, any, we hear of these like lovers quarrels and this like what society refers to it now as girl drama. And really, what was that girl drama? The girls they remained a group of 40 women that would still take care of each other and look after each other all the way to the end. Even this woman who was a child, grew up only in the bunker, still some sort of humanity was given to her, rubbed off on her, that she saw maybe through the actions of women taking care of other women, that she was left alone at the end of the book with Laura, who she's like, I didn't really like Laura. I think Laura's kind of a complainer. She doesn't help a lot. Like, Laura kind of sucks. And she still waited with Laura while Laura's soul left her body. And she was excited for her next journey, but she didn't like kill Laura or like leave Laura behind. And she had every selfish reason in the book. Like, she's like, I don't really have an attachment to Laura. I don't really care about her. Like, and I thought it speaks to our nature as women to take care of each other and to be nurturing and look after each other, because all she grew up around was like, it doesn't matter that I don't like Laura. I'm going to see her to the end. So she let her peacefully pass. And then she did a lot of physical labor to lay her in a grave with dignity and bury Laura. And not that she didn't like her, but it's like, it wasn't one of her friends. It's someone that she could have taken or left. It's the only thing standing in the way of her and what she really wants, which is like continue exploring. Laura is the only thing standing between that. And she still is like, I'm going to nurture her and give her a death of dignity. And still to the end, all of the women looked after each other and cared for each other.
Yeah. So I think an interesting thing for me too is like, this narrator doesn't have a name. Like, she's never named. There is she just is the narrator. And her identity is like solely built on the circumstance and experiences that she has had within the bunkers and within interacting with these older women. And she is the child in this circumstance, and learning from all of these adult caretakers how to experience life. And I think at one point she talks about, actually multiple times in the book, she talks about how she's like, well, I'm not a human. Like I don't like, she doesn't feel like she is a human based off all the education she's received from these other women and their experiences and her memories and everything. And so she's like, yeah, I'm just like,
I'm not a human. I'm different than them.
I'm just a girl. It's fine. just a girl. But she is trying to just like kind of come to her own sense and understand who she is, while also still kind of playing into that societal like norm and understanding of like how women interact in the world as caretakers, and just like her, like she has that instinct already built into her, that human like instinct to care. For me, the main theme of this book is like understanding what it's like to be human when you are stripped away from every aspect of what humanity is, and like or like what makes you feel human. You're like, she's not provided with any emotions, feeling anything like that. Like in her time in the bunker, there was a story where she talks about being overcome by just like incredible sadness and not being able to have any sort of physical connection with any of the other ladies in the bunker. I think in terms of like just like following this narrator, like she's never content in her strive for knowledge, and she wants to know more. And I think like in her own human way, like she's using these other women to gain knowledge and experience and understanding. Like she's almost using these women to like get what she needs and wants as well. And that's kind of like how we connect with other humans and how we exist in our world. And like we're basically all just trying to survive and find ways to connect with each other.
And I think not necessarily even like using almost sounds manipulative. And we know like she doesn't have any sort of emotional scale. Like she can't grasp her own emotions enough to ever be like outwardly manipulative. But I think it's, you know, we need each other. Like these women all needed each other, whether it be survival. One person can't carry all the meat and the chairs and the mattresses from the bunker to surface. But also emotionally, like we need each other for comfort. We need each other to understand ourselves better. You know, we need, like, I don't understand what's happening in my body. I need to hear that you've had a similar experience, or, you know, someone that's had a similar experience, and it calms my nervous system when I hear that. And we see that in these women, and their commitment to each other to the end is so beautiful. But, you know, they go through this journey together. So whether they can't leave each other behind because they're trauma bonded or what, but they're making decisions based on staying together as the group, versus it makes the most sense if we all take 10 of us go in 40 different directions, you know, but instead they're like, no, we're going to foster each other and take each other to the next location, and they go one way as 40. Like I thought that was just incredibly, whether it speaks to trauma bonds or whether it speaks to our need for, you know, we know subconsciously that we need each other, and we need all of each other, and not just because of what you can give me, but because, well, yeah, because of what you like. We need to keep each other close.
It's like that quote that is like, let everyone you meet be your teacher. And like if we existed in society in that way, and you allow other people to be the ones that provide you information about their own sense of self and journey, like you can learn from them, and you are like, then you're you're gaining knowledge, you're gaining experience. There is gain to be had from learning something from someone else, regardless of what you're learning. Like you don't, you know, you can take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. And so I think like that's something that shows up in the book a lot too, is like each of these, like some of the women have experience. Some of them were teachers. Some of them were, I don't know. Teachers was the only one that I remember.
Nurses. There was a nurse.
There was a nurse. There were different
occupations.
Within this. And so they each had different roles. And that's how it is in our society as well. Like, you can't be like, one person can't be everything. You can't have all of the knowledge. You can't have all of that to continue to move forward. If you want to remain stagnant and you just want to exist as you are, then like, you don't need to learn anything anymore. You can exist in a world in which you have all of the information that continues to push you forward within survival. So it's all about, like,
true, because like, to that direct example in the novel is when she continues on her own for a while, but then she finds something that she's like, yeah, I guess I could stop here. Like, she's not driven any, you know, she can't actually just continue on her own over and over, a copy and paste, because she gets to that final bunker. And instead of going down, she's like, I just can't have it anymore. I can't do it. Like, I can't go on alone. Like, she would have to, again, go in there, face that emotional devastation alone. And it just kind of circles back to what you're saying, but our greater point of like, that we need each other, that we can't, like, she emotionally couldn't continue on her own. But I was like, oh, it's so true. Cause what you were just saying, I'm like, she does stop eventually when she's by herself, cause she can't learn anything from anyone else or take from their experiences anymore. And it's presented in the novel pretty much stripped down in that way. Like, she kind of recognizes that too at the end. She's like, I just can't do it alone.
Yeah, she's like, and we're done.
What is like, here? Yeah, like,
right. And like,
what is here if I'm not with you? Like,
right. And there's like no other information she's finding. Yeah. Like, she just, this poor girl just like goes on this journey where she just like sees insurmountable amount of death and like just questions and yeah, she gets to a point where she's like, has reached all of the information that she can gain individually.
It's interesting, because arguably she's getting more information. Like, she comes across the bus, so that's more just like information, but because and then she comes across this little rocks and house, and that's where she eventually stops. But it's interesting because she's getting, you would think that if information was her driver and curiosity was her sole driver, that would actually push her forward. But because she's lost everyone she lived with, the defeat still just became too much, because she arguably is getting more info, but she's getting further and further from the place where she had,
and like, connection,
community and connection.
Connection. And I think that's really where it's like that, like, you can't just have one emotion driving you fully to do something. Like, there's also some aspect of gain that you are looking for, whether that's conscious or not. Like, there's a need that needs to be met. And for her, it's like, well, at the end, like, what was that need? Was it connection and love, or was it answers? And we don't know.
And we never will.
Never literally find out.
It's crazy because I thought that it was going to go, I thought she was going to fall in love with the guard. I was like, oh yeah, this is going to get good. And then
you love a good love story.
I'm a romance reader to my core. So I was like, perfect. This is why Cheyanne recommended it to me. And then you were like, what'd you say to me? You were like, oh, it's a really great female friend. Cheyanne knows how to bait me into reading a book, because she was like,
yes,
it's a great female friendship book. And then I'm reading it and I'm like, what kind of female friendships have you had, you psycho?
Nothing but good ones.
No, but it is such a, it's a beautiful, like, resilience read. But it's not even beautiful. It's actually very devastating and melancholy.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it is a devastating read to read alone. I think it's a wonderful read to talk with your friends about.
Which is crazy.
Boom! But like, having these discussions in book clubs and being able to like sit there and talk with my friends in depth about our sense of self and our identity and like what we would have done in this situation and all of these things, and like, versus me on my own, like sitting there staring at myself in the mirror, and my memories begin with anger. Like, I'm in my own head. I'm questioning these things. I'm ruminating. I'm having these existential crises. But then I sit there with all my friends and we're like having wonderful discussions and like making something of this book that ends with nothing
and gives you it's giving nothing.
It literally gives nothing.
Reading this alone sucks.
Yeah.
But if I read it and then I get to talk to my friends,
mm-hmm.
that's
like
kind of
connect
cool.
with other people about it, and just like throw out your weird theories about like what is going on.
It's
with
a great book to theorize.
I just don't understand
what is happening with the bus.
What is happening with the bus? And like, how pissed would you be if you could never look at yourself in the mirror? Like,
yeah,
that was a whole other theme that I was like, wait a second. Like,
I know. I'm like,
never gets
vain.
to see like what she looks like.
Yeah,
like
until the very end.
Until the very
she's
end.
aged.
Yeah, and it's like, what is like? Yeah, what was it? She's like, is being beautiful for men or something? Like, do we like what does beauty look like, and how do we identify that, and all that's like all of these things, and like even like her own, like she's only ever seen what these other women look like. She doesn't know what herself looks like. So her like vanity is completely stripped as well, because she's like, I don't know, I could look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And like,
oh, I loved that quote where the woman was like,
still going on. Like, yeah, I'm like, what is that like?
Yeah,
it's like something about like to be loved by others, like you have to be beautiful or something.
Yeah,
like,
that quote where she's like,
I know, I'm like,
is being beautiful for the men. And she's like, yeah, because I could have loved myself whether I was hunchback or lame. Like,
regardless of that, you're just like, I could.
And it just hits you so hard because you're like, damn, that's so true.
Like everything not everything, but like so much of our society like is driven by looks, and
and myself. Catching myself wrong in my reflection ruins my whole day. Yeah, maybe my whole week, depending on the angle. Like,
right. Like when you were like, when I said, do we have to film this? And you were like, yeah, we'll just film it. I'm like, what about these 2 monstrosity pimples on my chin? And like,
whereas if you had no idea what you'd look like or what you looked like, you probably wouldn't even ask.
It wouldn't affect me. It wouldn't care. But we've put so much emphasis on these things that affect us from there's external pressure that is then affecting the way that you do those things. And there's a lot of that in this book.
Do you think that without men in the world, that would it change how you interacted with the women in your life?
No, I'm a little gay. So I'm still going to be like, do you think I'm pretty? But also like, maybe. I think there is, that's like, I don't know. It's a loaded question really. 'Cause like, there's so many follow-up questions I would have to that as well. Like, but I think there's so much of the ways that we see ourselves is conditioned by how others have perceived us and how much you allow that to affect yourself. So like, having grown up and like, developed a lot of people-pleasing tendencies, like I find that like, yeah, a lot of the ways that I view myself self is like already being filtered through how I think other people are viewing me. And that's like so silly and detrimental. So it's like, I think if men were not in the picture, and we're talking like strictly a binary world right now, or if like, if men weren't in the picture, I'm sure that I would view myself very differently. But I also wonder like, what things would us women then conjure up to be insecure about? Like, or would that even be a factor? Like,
would we? Yeah.
Would we? And I don't know, but I think, from my experience within the queer community, like those tropes still play out. There's still a lot of vanity and judgment and, just like perception that happens within community. And so I think like, yes and no.
When I was thinking about this, just as you were talking, like obviously romantic relationships like play a little bit different. Like you can remove men from the world and still have romantic relationships, and that play a factor into how we view ourselves and stuff. But really, I think that it would shift how I interacted with the women around me, and how my self-talk would probably change, because the natural competition would be so removed when you take men out of it. Like no one needs to impress men. No one needs to, I don't know. We don't have to change. No one's viewed as a competition. So that because when I think of anytime I get a difficult feeling in my chest when it comes to another woman, it's because I feel threatened potentially. And for me, because I'm vain and I'm very focused on appearances, that a lot of time looks like that, like, oh, she's so beautiful. And then my mind goes on a race. But I'm like really trying to sit here and think of when in other circumstances I feel threatened by women. And it's not in a lot of places other than romantically.
Which I think that's fascinating, because earlier, before we started filming, we talked about love, and we talked about the theme of love in the book, and how like the women talk about love in a romantic way. And so the narrator has to understand the feeling of love within herself and like what that is to her, because she's never had a romantic relationship. So she's never experienced, like, she's had her little oogly oogly whatever with the guard, but then it's like love is so much more than just like, I want to have sex with you, or like, I find you physically attractive. And so that like theme kind of, I mean, I just like kind of tying it to everything you're saying. It's like, well, you know, once you find love within other people, and you can find love within somebody that is separate from like a romantic relationship, like, can you have can those like feelings of jealousy and like those what we would perceive as negative feelings, can those trickle into those relationships? And like I think because I look at a lot of my friendships that I have, and I think about the friendships that have like combusted or have had some sort of like fallout or whatever, and there at some point or time was still some aspect of like me feeling negatively towards that other person, and like not being able to connect with them in a way that fosters love and understanding. And like I think you can still have a lot of those negative feelings like with women, and like even if we take men out of the equation, I think like we could still find ourselves getting a little bit too caught up in the girl drama.
Is it a patriarchal threat or is it a romantic threat that exists there? Because girl drama without boys, like how many of your explosive fights with friends have revolved around a boy? I think most of mine can, because I've had girl fights that there wasn't there wasn't men in the equation. So that fight actually wasn't detrimental to the friendship. How much of that, because these women in this book, there were 40 of them and they had all kinds of little tiffs and girl fights and blah, and it never broke up the 40. Like no one ever picked sides in a way that broke the 40 women up physically. And it never got to the point where somebody else had to intervene. There wasn't further group intervention. It was like, oh, they had their tiff and they worked it out. Oh, they had their tiff and now it involves her and now they've all worked it out. Like, so it was there were these constant hiccups, because anytime you have people in a room, like you're gonna, or in that environment, you have 40 people, you're not gonna get along with all 39 of your fellow. But like it was interesting to hear that it wasn't detrimental to the progress of the group, and that group decisions, while maybe not everyone was happy about it, everyone was on board. Whereas like with men, I think they would have split up. I think they would have fought. There would have been,
but do you think that it's partially because there was that like hope that had been stripped in a sense? Like it's there's 40 and then there's 39 and then there's 38, and it continues to decrease and decrease, and there isn't any sort of like, no one's getting pregnant, there aren't going to be more, like there isn't. So it's like, I mean, less people, less drama, I would assume.
But I think we're really short-sighted as humans too. Like we can only see what's right in front of us. So I think like fights were like, and like, because when you think about when you're in a fight or when you're in an argument with someone you love, and just because our narrator can't fully make those human connections that we know of, it doesn't mean these other women couldn't. And the stakes were probably a lot higher in these relationships So the fights may have even been more passionate than they would have been for us because the stakes are so much higher there. I can't lose you. I'm seeing the people around me be lost. We do have this loss of hope. So like they could have been even worse fights than what we're known. But if you think about your body in response to conflict, it's really a stressful thing. Yeah. So for us to be able, or for these women to be able to like regulate and communicate and still be a pack of 40 or 38 or 30, you know, as they went on, I think just really speaks to women as communicators and nurturers. And but I see what you're saying too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, I think there's so much nuance.
Right. Like,
well. Like we're also like, right. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like
who cares? We're in the middle of some
like,
Mars desert.
I know. I'm like, were we abducted by aliens? What is our theory about what in God's name happened here? Because we don't know.
I'm like, what happened to everybody else?
I know. I'm like, is this some kind of like Hunger Games situation? Or like, when are they going to come out and be like, haha, you're on MTV Punked?
Yeah.
Yikes.
And like you go on such a journey with the narrator because you feel relief even at the end when she finds this like underground house. You're like, oh my gosh, cool. And you feel relief and you feel a little bit of hope, again, foolishly, but you like navigate that a little bit with the narrator. And then you're wondering like, okay, what else is out there? What else? Like, and she's like, I've given up. Like, I'm not going anywhere else. And, I don't know. I forget where I was going with that, but it was crazy.
I mean, this whole book was crazy. Like,
I'm like, what is what that was there? Now I have more questions than if we had just never found the house with the rocks on top of it.
That's so fair. Yeah. I mean, the book just constantly kind of, it just forces you into question after question after question.
The bus is crazy.
I still don't understand the bus.
The bus bothers me deeply. I was actually laying in bed staring at the ceiling last night being like, but why didn't they panic? Why were all the bodies just sitting upright? Like, did someone place them there? Like
were they gassed? But then you're like, but then the guard, like, the guards had been masks, and then you're like, what? Like, so maybe they were poisoned, like
all sitting at the same time, but they didn't throw up. Like, I'm telling you, I was like, I should be insightfully preparing for Cheyenne's episode right now, and all I can do is stare at the ceiling and be like, but what was up with the bus?
Right. I mean, I think it's some sort of like post-apocalyptic nuclear waste site where like my theory is that the bus was there before all this.
If the narrator, the nameless narrator, were to like show up on our doorstep right now, what's the first thing you'd show her? Like, she's like, hey, I just got out. I just was plopped down in our front yard right now. And she knocked on the door. What's the first thing you would show her?
My magic wand.
Fair.
If I'm going to bring another woman any joy in this life, it's through masturbation.
No, that's fair. That's valid.
Like, now that I'm thinking about her not having a period and not really understanding her body and her autonomy and just like anatomically correct terminology of her parts, her bits, her coot and brain shoot, her vagina. Let's use proper terminology here, women. Ladies, they, thems, everyone. that if anyone watches SNL, that's what that's from.
No, Kate McKinnon.
Kate McKinnon is my
Roman Empire.
Literally my spirit animal. I love her.
I love her.
That Kate McKinnon actually visited the bunkers, and when she came back, that skit is her returning from this scene.
It's so true. Everyone else went to like wherever they took the rest of the people in this book. They're like, oh, the aliens were so nice to me. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, we're referring to this SNL skit that I'll tag in the show notes because you actually have to watch it. It's so funny. It's with Kate McKinnon and she and Ryan Gosling and Cecily Strong.
Yes.
And Cecily and Ryan are like, oh my God, they all get abducted by aliens, but basically Kate McKinnon goes to the bunkers in this book. And Cecily and Ryan go to analysis. Like they go to like I don't know some like Bridgerton for a day or something.
Yeah. But no, Kate McKinnon, her and her coot and brain shoot, her coot and brain shoot are coming back.
Okay, I actually would show our nameless narrator that SNL skit and be like, Allison,
like you're like sit down. I actually need you to watch an episode of Law and Order Special Victims Unit.
I'm just gonna traumatize you when you enter this world.
Meet my other favorite woman, Mariska Hargitay.
The show that raised me, Law & Order Special Victims Unit. It's why I have crippling anxiety.
It's literally why I work in a child advocacy center.
Maybe I'd show her an episode of Bluey.
That could be good.
Bluey's good.
She'd
probably have too many questions. I'd be like, shh.
Just make her take a shot of tequila. Yeah. You want to experience pain? No chaser.
I'd give her Tylenol when she had a fever. And just like if she got a fever, I'd give her Tylenol and a humidifier, and her life would be changed.
Like, what is this? You're like, here is an antibiotic. He's like, listen, I don't know why I've been super itchy down there. And you're like, here's some diflucam, baby girl. Try this monostat.
It was interesting. Here's monostat.
Here's monostat. Game changer.
That would be your dream, for someone to just follow you around all day asking you questions.
Oh my God. Literally, I'd be like, get in. We're going to TJ Maxx. Get in the car. We're going to TJ Maxx. I have to show you something. I feel like that might do it for her. There's so many things that
I know. I'm like, she has to see TJ Maxx.
She has to see all the wonders of being a woman.
TJ Maxx, Diva cups, and magic wands.
Yeah.
And Monostat.
Monostat, Law & Order Special Victims Unit, a little bit of Bluey. What would the first meal you would feed her be?
First meal I would feed her.
If you say Chick-fil-A, that's a hate crime.
Don't worry, I'm not going to say Chick-fil-A.
Like a fat Chipotle burrito.
I think I would take her for a smoothie bowl. But
that is also so millennial of you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And some avocado toast.
Get her an avocado toast, a tall, iced, skinny blonde vanilla latte, and a smoothie bowl.
Non-dairy.
Right.
Non-dairy only. And a smoothie bowl with
or else we're going to have to show her Lactaid. That's a
whole
whole nother thing.
And that is not one of the joys of being a woman, but it is one of the burdens.
I am showing her something incredibly processed. I'm going to be like, this Twinkie would have out-survived you. Try it. Give it a taste.
This thing will never mold. And it's disturbing.
Yeah.
Gosh, what other things could we take her to do? We could go roller skating with her. She would find that so fun.
That would be fun.
Here's the thing. We need to all view, going around with her, you would rediscover all of these. I'm going to get really sentimental. All of these little wonders that are so mundane to us now.
Yeah. That was my first thing. They didn't have coffee in this. What was it when they got to one of the
coffee and they were so excited? I was like, real
coffee, and I'm like, same. I actually would have.
She was like, the women were so excited about this for some reason, and I was like, for valid reason, bitch.
Yeah, you sit down.
Don't care about coffee like this.
That would have been my motivator for continuing on.
Yeah, maybe we'll find coffee at another bunker.
Screw tobacco. I am lip packing beans. Caffeinate my veins. That would be the best shit of my life in that bunker.
my first post-coffee poop.
Something my therapist and I have been kind of talking about and working through is I think I've put a lot of emphasis on healing and trying to be better and heal. And my therapist has reframed it in a way of, well, what if you start focusing on connection rather than healing? Because you will heal through connection. When you start taking the time to sit down with somebody and ask for help or find ways to connect with them, whether it is through watching fish flip for an hour or playing with sand, being present with that person and finding that connection, because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves as humans to be fixed and be better and be in a place of just content, and it is almost impossible to find that without connecting with other people.
Which death was hardest for you to read?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think it actually sparked a pretty deep conversation about medically assisted suicide within my book club, because we talked about just like the morals behind it and what are our thoughts. And I think, for like as humans should be able to make a choice as to living or not living, and at what point is it appropriate to ask for help to end your suffering. And we see that happen kind of a lot throughout this book. And it makes you kind of question your own understanding of murder and like suicide and all of these deep conversations. Because like at no point was I like, nah, she wasn't justified in that, like the narrator. But then after reading it, you're like, whoa,
she killed a lot of people.
She killed a lot of people. I'm like,
for what?
You're like, whoa.
But then you're like, oh, right, for reasons which they wanted.
Yeah. So there's definitely like a lot of themes around morality.
Yeah.
And I think that was a tough death to read about too, because in a way I was rooting for that character to find her own sense of like peace.
Yeah.
And but I also felt conflicted in the aspect that she was taking her own life. And then I'm like, but she has that choice. But then I'm like,
but does she?
But does she?
Yeah.
Like, was she?
Did
anyone do a safety assessment on her? Like, I'm worried. So yeah, I think there's just, I don't know, there's a lot of quasi themes in here.
So yeah, Cheyanne, do you have any last thoughts on the book? Thank you so much for joining us. I told Chrissy too when we did our film that, I really appreciate you like supporting your older sister's little like side project. It's really been a lot
of fun. Getting me to tell
but...
everyone about this thing. I'm famous. This is about me right now.
This is for my own fame.
What book would you tell her to read?
Oh my God, that's a great question. Well, first I would want her to just divulge her gardening knowledge from the first book she ever read.
So really, you're like, actually, could you do some landscaping for me?
Okay, I think I would have her read Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher, because she's so curious about like romantic relationships. And
I mean, the only book I can think about right now is Pride and Prejudice because it's staring me in the face. But I would be like, don't read that.
This is my
it's not even it's a flower vase.
It's a vase. Yeah, that's a flower vase behind me. It's not actually the book.
That's kind of fun.
I have actually never read Pride and Prejudice.
I did in high school. I was like going through in like when I was at home, my childhood bedroom, and I looked at all of the books I have, and they all were like about God.
Oh, mine were all about love. Like I had all romance novels.
Mine were all about God, and I'm like, wow, I guess I am really an existential creature. It's like The Shack, and like, I don't know, it was like how to find God in a world where God doesn't exist.
Mine was like chicken soup for the horny soul. But yeah, any closing thoughts on the book?
I mean, it was a really fun book to read and just think about who I am and what brings me joy and yeah, like what I find connection within.
This is Shelf Absorbed Podcast. My name is Cecylia. Again, we had Cheyanne Neuenschwander on. Check the show notes for different resources to reach out to her to if there's something that you are interested in doing in your community. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as @Shelf Absorbed Podcast. And then check out our website for more fun resources, TBR ads, book reviews, and guest profiles. So you can kind of catch up with what's up and coming. And that's www.shelfabsorbedpodcast.com. Thank you.
Slay.